Hello, I'm Chrissy Seaton and welcome to my channel. Thank you for being a subscriber, and if you're not already a subscriber, please consider doing so. You're more than welcome to share my videos, leave a comment, click on the like button. Well, today's video is entitled, What Strengths Do You Have? And I guess the question we all ask ourselves is, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I build on and what do I overlook or diminish? So further to that, those of us who are mindful of God and mindful of the fact that God is the one who gives us our strengths, our weaknesses tend to be of an earthly nature. But those divine strengths that we have are given to us by God for the purpose of fulfilling the mission that He has designed for us to do during our lifetime. And some people are able to identify that very easily, and others have difficulties at times until they do come upon it. So, let's talk about these strengths now. So, in order to know what God wants us to do, I personally believe that the best place to start is recognizing what my strengths are, what your strengths are. And sometimes you will know those, and sometimes you might have to just think about it a little bit. It doesn't matter, that's fine. So, begin with things like, what do I do well? What am I good at? What in amongst that should I focus upon in order to accomplish that unique purpose that I was created for? God created me for a unique purpose in this world, and I would have been assigned tasks that I have to do. So what are the strengths that I have that enable me to accomplish this mission on earth? So what we would do is we have to be honest with ourselves and say, first of all, we do have strengths and we have weaknesses. We have human failings. None of us are immune from that. But it's opportune to sit down at some stage and I would say get a piece of notepaper and a pencil out and start saying, well, what are my strengths? Now, don't go around asking people this. This is a personal thing that you must do, a truthful personal thing. And no one's going to know about this except you and God. So you're going to identify what those strengths are that you have. What is it that stands out personally to you that you think, well, I'm good at that? I'm always able to do that fairly easily. And also, along with that, we are identifying character traits that we have. Now, can I say that character traits is one of the recognizing our character traits is one of the bonuses of maturing with age. And we kind of get this, I've been here before, done that, I'm not going to make the same mistake again, or I've learnt from my past not to do that, or it's better if I do it this way. And that they say hindsight's a wonderful teacher. It is. It's a pity we couldn't get the hindsight first. But one of the things that God designed us for was to build on our strengths and to overcome our weaknesses. So let's move on here now. I'm going to use myself as an example, and you do the same with yourself. When you finish watching this video, sit down while it's fresh in your mind and get that bit of paper and pencil out and start listing what your strengths are. Now, I'm 70 years of age. I turned 70 this year, and I've kind of reached a stage now where I can look back on those years and think at steps and stages things happened. And I have to say that the strengths that I have certainly come from Hashem. I recognise them as gifts. I can't ever remember developing them. So they had to be part of me, part of my psyche. And also, on top of that, I had a father who was very wise and probably the best judge of character that I have ever known in my life. And he's not with me anymore, blessed memory, but his judge of character was superb. So I acquired a lot from him, but I watched examples of how his ability to judge character, and sometimes you'd think, wow, well, you should. A couple of years later, you'd say, Dad was right, he knew all along. So I had a good teacher to give me examples, but I also recognised too that at a very early age, before I was able to maybe analyse in my mind in a kind of an wise way, I also recognised that there were certain people I liked and other people I didn't want anything to do with, or I had as little to do with them as possible, or I didn't like them. Now, childlike, I couldn't explain that, nor did I even attempt to. But as you go through life, you expand upon those feelings. We call it a gut feeling, to put it crudely, but it's a feeling you get within that just says, be careful, or, there's things that you just don't want to share with that person. So that was one thing that I think has served me well, and I'm so blessed to have that. Blessed that Hashem gave it to me, and blessed that not only that, he gave me a father that was able to expand upon that in very practical examples for me to learn by. So now, we can never be 100%. I mean, I've made mistakes. It doesn't mean you won't make a mistake, but it serves you well in an overarching fashion. So along with that strength of character, I also found that I could read between the lines. You know that expression? Someone's smiling at you and they're telling you something or reporting something to you in the workforce or what have you, and they're lying to you. You can read between that passage that they're quoting you, or that story they're telling you. And so I developed that and improved upon that as I got older, and I spent over 50 years as a nurse, as a registered nurse, loved my profession, loved every moment of it, never wanted to be anything but a nurse. And that profession taught me some very disciplined traits that never failed me. So again, I had my father to teach me. I had some ability that God had given me from birth, I guess, and also I had the discipline of my wonderful profession, which honed those skills along the way. So I developed that ability, and I still have that ability. I know when I'm being played. I can tell that straight away. Just a bell goes off. I think, you're being played. And so there are times when you have to, how shall I say, learn to say no, and say it firmly, respectfully, and mean it. Don't ever say no and then think, oh, maybe I shouldn't. You'll know when it's the right time to say no. And you need to when you're being played, you've got to step away from that and not allow that other person or situation to infuse upon you, because it doesn't end well. It never ends well, that. Not only are you compromising your integrity and your intuition, but you're not feeling any purpose, really. So, again, I'm speaking from my experiences. So you do have to know when to step away, and also, by the same token, there are things you can't step away from that you have to confront. And that requires you to always rely on those past strengths that you have. In my case, I'd learnt that through increments over my life. And so as I got older and more experienced in my profession, etc., it's not something you always want to do, to confront an issue. It's not pleasant, but I learnt how to do it without being infected by it. Because some things are like a virus. You have to confront it and fix it, or get rid of it, whatever the case may be. So moving along now, also I have weaknesses, and I have many. And one of the things is that I always found it, I didn't find it difficult to delegate duties in terms of nursing, because it's something you have to do, delegate duties and responsibilities. But in my personal life, I find it very hard to delegate things. Oh no, I'll do it. I want it done right. Oh no, I'll do it, save somebody else having, and you tend to take on too much. Well, I do. So, but you're not taking on a whole load of stuff at once. You just little increments. Oh no, I'll do that. Oh, don't worry, I'll do that. Oh yes, I can do that. And then suddenly at the end of the week, you've got this pile or backlog of things that, and they might have only been little half-hour jobs or even 5-minute jobs or a quick phone call, but suddenly they creep up on you. That's bad time management, something I always prided myself in having at work. But we can become a little bit too, how shall I say, well, I think it's a fault in saying, I can do that, I'll do that, I'll do that. You take on too much, and you know what? You don't do all those things the way you thought you were going to be able to do them. You took them on because you wanted to do them properly, and then suddenly you're falling short of the mark. So that's a weakness with me. Certainly underestimating my time involvement when it comes to saying, yeah, I'll do that, I'll do that. And don't, I can't do everything. I realise that is, that's arrogant. It's arrogant. It really is, to think, oh no, I'll have to do that, because it's not. There's other people out there that can do it. So they are a couple of glaring weaknesses of mine, and I'm very mindful of them. And certainly as I've got older and more mature, I've come to realise, you just think of it like you're at work and you've got to delegate duties to the most senior person or capable person or what have you. I've got to remind myself, in my personal life, I just can't take on everything, because there's other people out there that can do it as good, if not better, than I can. So the main thing I want you to concentrate, a lot of people will say, oh, write a list of your weaknesses and your strengths. Yes, but what's everyone do? They go and write a list of their weaknesses, all the bad stuff first. Don't. My advice to you is concentrate on your weaknesses. List those concentrate on your strengths. I don't edit my videos, so you're just going to have to overlook my blunders occasionally. Concentrate on your strengths. Write those lists down, and you're going to know what they are. Some things will come really quickly to you, and other people, you have probably said to you, oh, you're very good at this, or you're always, can do this and that. So make that list of strengths that you have, and you'll prioritize them too. You'll think, oh, that's one of my greatest strengths, or that's one of my strengths. But, you know, these 2 or 3 are really significant strengths that I have. And be aware of your weaknesses. Certainly be aware of those, but don't drown yourself in them. Now, the reason I say this is because, again, age and experience has taught me that if you focus unnecessarily on those weaknesses, it's not good for your psyche, and you're overlooking those divine strengths and gifts that God has given you. They're what you're to concentrate on. They're the tools that have been given to you by Hashem to accomplish what it is you are to accomplish in your lifetime on this earth. And you will build on those strengths as well. And as you're building on those divine strengths that you've been given, you will find, again, experience has taught me, that those weaknesses start to diminish. The strengths tend to cancel out some of those weaknesses, or make it much easier for you to correct them and build those weaknesses into strengths, which often a weakness can be. It can be flipped around into a very important strength. So the first thing is concentrate on what you know your strengths are, and then capitalize on those. Remember, they're from God, the strengths, and the weaknesses are often of our own making and are of this world. So they can be minimized or overcome. The thing is that most important thing I want to stress again is don't let those weaknesses overshadow those beautiful divine strengths that you already have and are using. So focus on what you do well and have that God-given assurance that they were given to you to meet a purpose that you were created for. When God handpicked your soul and handpicked your parents, placed you in the womb, he had a purpose. Your purpose was already ordained in heaven. So therefore, he's given you all the tools that you need. God will not ask you to do something that you don't have the equipment to do it with. Remember that. Now, we have a very good recipe also for being righteous and having strength and having good character traits. And of course, that recipe is the 7 Noahide laws, which I've spoken of in previous videos. So we have a kind of a recipe already there in front of us. And that builds on that adds to our strengths that we already have inbuilt, and we build on each in a circular motion. Now, let's look at recognize when we have to move forward. Now, and when I say when we have to move forward, sometimes we have to move forward and away from things. And at the same time, as I've spoken about, we have to step aside and withdraw from certain situations or people or group, organisations, etc. And you will get that sense of knowing, which comes from those strengths that you have. Makes it easy for you to see through something or to analyse something. You get a very analytical approach to things, like a strength, recognising the character of someone or reading between the lines. It's that sixth sense some people call, but we know where that comes from, God. So there are times, as I said, when you have to analyse where you're at and withdraw if necessary, or reorganise and regroup. And again, you'll draw on your strengths and of course your past experiences. Let's not forget those. So you will begin with your strengths, act upon them, and only then will you start to see what you perceive as your weaknesses starting to diminish. They're not taking centre stage in your life. Your strengths are pushing them into the background. And it's a little bit like autocorrect. if you're focusing on your strengths and using those to for the purpose of what God created you for, then those weaknesses, they eventually end up off stage altogether. Now, one overarching strength from within each of us can overcome a multitude of weaknesses too. So people might say, I've only got one or two strengths, we've got lots of weaknesses. Now listen, let's come back to the drawing board on the strengths, because if you improve upon even those strengths you already have, or enlarge upon them, broaden them, they actually have the ability to cancel out and diminish those shortcomings, those weaknesses. So always build upon those God-given strengths that you have. Now, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to give you some homework to do. When you finish watching this video, I want you to sit down, get a piece of notepaper and a pencil, and I want you to list your strengths. Don't sit there chewing the pencil thinking, oh, what's my strength? Whatever you perceive as a strength off the top of your head, doesn't have to be in order of priority or importance. Just write them down. What are your strengths? It can be, I'm always punctual at work, or whatever. Only you know those strengths. And if you don't, you have to start analysing and looking at them, because you do have them. You do have those strengths. Trust me. And they don't have to be huge strengths. They can be small. Strength comes in large and small quantities. All can grow and become even of greater strength once you recognise them. And, some of your friends have probably told you things. I'll say, oh, gee, you're good at that. You handled that so well. You were so diplomatic, or they didn't put that over you, did they? You were able to analyse that. So, but you don't need to go asking your friends, what are my strengths? You sit down and you know best what your strengths are, and you need to name them and list them. Now, let me just give you an example. What is it? You can start off by getting your creative juices moving and say, look, what am I good at? Now, look, somebody might be a really good cook and they love cooking and enjoy cooking for crowds or cooking for the family, etc. That I'm not a good cook. That's just not my field at all. But you are able to use that strength in helping within your community where you live, or your family, of course. You might make a nice meal for a neighbour who's unwell, or just because use your strength of being a good cook. And I know of a lady, I don't know if she still does it now, but she was a really good cook for anything. But what she used to do was a couple of times a week, she used to make up 2 big plastic containers full of sandwiches. She would make some with meat and etc., and then she'd make some without meat, like egg, lettuce, what have you. And she'd make these sandwiches, and then she would cut them diagonally, and she'd put 2 diagonals together and glad wrap them, and then she used to just go along with these plastic containers, and when she came to people in the street that were homeless or whatever, she would just say, do you want a meat sandwich, or do you want it? She would hand these out, and that was it. That's what she did. I think she had a friend that used to help her sometimes as well. What a wonderful thing. She loved doing things. She was able to do it, and she made a significant difference to people. What a beautiful strength that is. There could be, you might be a sewer or do patchwork. that might be a great love and something I love doing. And you know what? There are so many community things you can do with that. Even with your sewing scraps, you can make little dog rugs or make sort of little swag type rugs for the homeless, etc. That's a strength you have. You can impart that and share that with your community. You might be a prayer of someone who prays really regularly. Now, that for Noahides, we aren't obligated or commanded to pray regularly. Of course, it is a good and righteous, sensible thing to do, to pray regularly. And if you happen to be someone who prays regularly, then you might consider becoming a prayer warrior. And these are most important people. And they pray for people who need prayers for certain reasons, either illness or to get a new job or get a new car or save money to buy a house, etc. So you can become a prayer warrior. And consider starting up a prayer warrior group in your community. You've got all the tools there. You've got the inclination, the strengths to do it. Do it. What about, you might be a dog person. You might like dogs, and so you might look after the neighbours' dogs when they're away, or offer to groom them or bath them if it's an elderly neighbour or something. Because you love dogs, that's a strength. You're kind and humane. And you can put that to good use where someone in your street will benefit from it. It does not have to be rocket science that you're accomplishing. It is just kindness and using things, your strengths, and building on them for the benefit of your community. You could be a retired professional person or a retired tradesperson, but still fairly active. So you might want to offer your services freely to some pensioners in your community, or to a young couple who are struggling. It just needs for you to think about what your strengths are. Look, there's many tradesmen who've retired and still dearly love their trade. They still like doing it. They might downscale what they're doing depending on their trade, but they're still doing it, and they're a tremendous resource in the community. So these are all things that are strengths that you can spread out, diffuse into your community. And those strengths are like a sponge. They draw in other people to follow suit. So your strengths are important. Concentrate on what your strengths are. And you have that ability to really make a difference in your community, make it stronger. In the street where you live, your strength can make your street stronger. So never underestimate your strengths that God has given you. Take full advantage of them to benefit certainly yourself and others around you. They are a divine gift. They will far outweigh the weaknesses that you perceive you have. Thank you for watching my video, and thank you for subscribing. Please share my videos, and if you're not already a subscriber, please consider doing so. In the meantime, I want you to get to that list now of strengths you have and make a difference in the street where you live. Take care, and God bless.